Welcome back everyone, and first things first, I've bought a microphone. So fingers crossed for this last part of the exhaust build, part 3, a final part of the exhaust build, you're going to notice a vast difference in my sound quality because now I can get as close as I want to the camera or as far away as I want from the camera, and it makes not the blindest bit of difference because it was a freaking nightmare during editing with the volume keep going up and down. So that's all done. I've got a wireless one coming as well because I've already pulled the camera over like 5 times with the wired one. But otherwise, what can I expect in this third and final part of the exhaust build? Right, now first thing, we're going to be going to check out the anti-roll bar. I've learned a few things on that, so I will take you through it. Some of it's about the actual fitting, some of it's the actual specs, and a few other little pieces, we'll do that. I've already done a little bit of prep work, so the back box is bolted up and adjusted. So I'll take you through like the clearances and a few other little things on that as well. And then I guess really we're just going to crack straight into it. I've got another exhaust bend. I've done a little bit of work cutting and a couple of little tack welds on that final piece from the last video, which again I will show you. I'm just basically trying to get myself in a decent place so I can fulfill my promise of this being the final installment of the exhaust before we take it off and then weld it up properly. So let's get to the back of the car and we'll take it from there. Right, we're at the back of the car, trying to ignore the exhaust for the time being because we're not onto that bit. Here's the anti-roll bar all bolted up. It's only on there loosely at the minute just to give me a kind of gauge for it. So what you'll see is the clamps are now on there with the bushes and stuff on there as well. I did find that to get this to fit really, really well, at least as far forward as you could get it, you do need to bolt these brackets quite far in the centre. I would ideally prefer to have them like, a little bit further out, but I don't think it's going to be like not strong enough or anything like that. Now, here is the first thing to bear in mind. You'll see this exhaust clamp just here. Now, if that wasn't there, if you have a look, you can see, if I stop putting my hand in the light, you can see there that the anti-roll bar is actually touching it. Now, the further forward and up this anti-roll bar goes, the further away from the shocks it gets, which is the clearance I actually need. So what I'm going to do is actually cut this off, move it up, so I think I can probably get, 5mm doesn't sound like much, but I think I can twist these round about another 5mm, and it will just give that little bit more of a safety net so it won't hit anything. I don't think I really need this that much anyway with the way this back box is bolted. Now I'm just going to pause the camera and I'm going to show you exactly why I need that extra space. There you go, because that is the clearance between the anti-roll bar and the shock. Now I don't particularly think it's going to, I don't necessarily think it's going to catch on there unless it's like completely like at full bottom of its travel, but you never know, we'll see. So that extra 5mm probably will help. The other thing to bear in mind as well, if you can just get the camera under here again, is these bushes, because they're not, the end of the anti-roll bar isn't round like it is on the Seicento, on the Cinquecentos, you cannot slide these on to the ends of the anti-roll bar because they're flat. So what I had to do is just round the back of here, was literally just cut a slit all the way along the anti-roll bar, so you open up like a horseshoe and like clamp it on. Otherwise, at the moment, not really hit any hurdles. I didn't expect to really. It's a setup that somebody else has already fitted to his car. Another thing to bear in mind as well, as you might have guessed, because these are Seicento bushes, this is the same diameter, same width as a Seicento anti-roll bar. So it's 18mm at the front and 18mm at the back. So fingers crossed, that will make it a relatively balanced setup. There was a little bit of talk on one of the groups at the moment whether this is suitable for a road car without it being too snappy. But on 18mm one, that's quite a thin anti-roll bar, and I'm going to run it really, really soft. So fingers crossed, it won't make it, only really suitable for the track or dry days. Only time will tell. So that's it on the anti-roll bar side of things for now. I will unbolt that and get it all painted up, and we'll sort out a few of the little bits. Otherwise, let's check out the exhaust and see where I got to with that. Now, I've not done a huge amount to this since I left you. All I've basically done is, this was the piece that actually bends around the tank. I actually chopped quite a lot off the end of this so I could actually like get it lined up. And I just put 2 little tack welds on there just to keep things together. So we'll go and quickly check that out on the car. Otherwise, to be honest with you, it's just very much a case now of getting this bolted up exactly where it needs to be. So I've got a exhaust clamp for this end, and then get the back box off and cut that final little bit of exhaust pipe that's on there at the minute and get the new bend on there. So we'll get back to the car and I'll just quickly show you how this looks, because it's always nice to see how these things look, even if I promise you that it fits. And that's it basically in place. It just about clears the tank without running too low either. Now this is my biggest problem now, because as you will see, I mean obviously I wasn't expecting it to meet that particular bit, but my bend that I've actually got a 135-degree bend in the hope that I'm going to be able to get it, cut it at an angle, a big enough angle that I'm going to be able to get it back round to here. I'm just going to have to address that when I come to it if it doesn't want to play ball, but fingers crossed, it should be all right. So we'll go and get the bend, mark it up, and then see what we can do. Oh, now you might think I always bang on about health and safety on this channel, but when you're led under a car and an axle stand falls and smacks you in the eye and makes your vision go a bit weird, then you'll know why, because that actually really freaking hurt. But otherwise, you know, it could be worse, couldn't it? The whole car could have fallen on my head too. Right, actually, I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly cut this off, cut the bracket off, cut this exhaust pipe off down to where it basically comes out straight, and then we know what we're doing with our exhaust bend. What did I do with that grinder? There you go. Right, so let's get that bolted back up to the car, and then we'll get it back up on the axle stand again, this time without smashing myself in the face. And then we'll start figuring out how to start cutting that 135-degree bend down. Let's try, shall we? So this is the view from under the car. Hello. So we're facing directly up towards the bottom of the car now. So you can see now I've actually cut this piece off. This gap is actually not looking quite so daunting. Now, to be able to show you how best to mark this up is going to be a little bit difficult, but we'll try our best. So you obviously know which way this is going to be bending. So you get your lovely exhaust bend, which I've got my 135-degree. The best way to do it really is to get one side exactly where it needs to be. Okay, so we know this bit has to go at that angle, give or take. I'll just do it like that. And then obviously then what you can do then is work out pretty much where you need to cut it here to give you sort of a vague length of the piece you need. Now, if I lift this camera up, it will make a little bit more sense if I can do it vaguely okay. So if you look at it from a side profile, you'll see what I mean. So if we mark it just where that back box, maybe an extra inch past where that back box is, then it starts getting a little bit more of a sensible size. And then obviously then you can start trimming that long piece down on the other end. It's just a bit better than going in and cutting it exactly where you think it should be and then realising it's a little bit on the short side. So I usually try and get at least one half of it vaguely near it. And then the rest of it, hopefully, will just kind of fall into place. So we'll get back out. I'll get the marker pen. I will give it a quick mark up and then we'll cut that one piece off. We'll give it a quick test fit and we'll just keep going from there. Now again, my little tip of just rubbing that tape around there. Again, if you just now look at that tape, when you look round, it sounds stupid because obviously it is just a straight cut, but you really do get a sense of whether that looks like it's going to be a nice cut and whether you're going to get it be like a weird oval, but I think that looks pretty good. Voila. Now, I'll be honest, I actually can't remember which side it is I cut, so remember to put like a little X or something on the side that you're keeping. I think it's this one. It doesn't really matter. I'll work it out. Let's go see how it looks. All right, let's give this a go. So I am pretty certain, if I can get my big hands out of the way, that's looking all right. Now that is definitely still maybe 5 mil, probably maybe a little bit more too deep here, but I reckon probably safe now to come up and measure roughly where this has to go, cut this off, and then we can just have to keep trimming tiny little bits off until we fit in there, but relatively happy with that so far. So I'm just going to mark this up, get that cut, and I'll be back. In this situation, the nice thing about buying a 135-degree bend rather than trying to buy the specific one you need is if you mess it up, you do get another crack at it. But obviously, that's not an excuse to be lapsed. But you know, at least in my situation, if this all goes a bit wrong, learn from it and then do the next one a bit better. As you can probably tell from that time lapse, I do have a massive problem with the fact that my vise isn't bolted to the table. Now, up till now, I didn't know where I was going to put it. It didn't have enough room, and it's been a nightmare. But yeah, it's not particularly safe. Make sure you bolt your vices down. So that's next job on my list when I've actually finished doing this, is bolt my vise down, because it actually fell off the bench at one point, which is a bit stupid. But I'm going to jump under the car, and we're getting there. So lots and lots and lots of crappy little trimming, but we are pretty much there. So let's have a quick look. There we go. You can see we are nearly there, and thankfully it's still looking nice and flat against each piece. I'm actually just going to see this little blue line that I've drawn. I'm just going to take that off in the hope that it pulls it in just that little bit more, but each time I trim it, it's getting closer and closer. So proof that hopefully I actually know what I'm talking about. Now I'm going to come right out and say it is so close, I can almost taste it. I mean, look at that. I really now just have to take this back off again and just take this off just at a very, very slight angle. I'll probably use the sanding belt to do that. Otherwise, I'm calling that pretty much done. Now, I will say, it is getting a little bit late now, so at the risk of annoying everyone that lives within a 2-mile radius of my house, I probably should stop putting the power tools on. So it's a Friday night, so I'll be straight back out here first thing in the morning to finish that last bit up, and then we'll take it off the car and see how it looks as a complete exhaust system. But I'm knackered now. I had to get up and down about 500 times. Either way, see you in the morning. Good morning. So I'm going to grab the belt sander out, get that bit sanded off, and hope I don't fall at the last hurdle or mess that bit up, but hopefully we're going to get a lot of welding done. I still haven't actually worked out where I'm going to do it yet, because it's a massive piece of exhaust, but I'm hoping once I actually get it on the floor and I move some stuff around, we'll have enough space to be able to weld it up, and you'll be able to see me do it. Hopefully to a vaguely good standard, but let's grab the sander and get going. There you go, look. Just took that, so it's just not quite straight. Fingers crossed, that should be peachy. Now I've actually refitted it and took it off and sanded it and grinded it a little bit more, and it looks like now, if it just focuses, I've just got that one last little bit to take off. Now I will obviously make sure that's a flat, that goes off flat, but basically I just effectively jammed that other little piece of exhaust up over it, so I knew exactly where it was, and I just have to grind it off until it gets to that blue line. So the belt sander actually seems to be doing a pretty good job at the moment. So I will do one last one, and then we'll see whether that is the final bit, because I've actually taken it on off about 6 more times now, so it's wearing a bit thin. Right, now I don't want to make it seem like I've been leaving out loads of clips and stuff to make it seem easy, because it actually hasn't been. It's been really time consuming, but effectively I've been doing the same thing over and over again. It's either taking this piece off, going to trim it up a little bit more, test fitting it, marking it, or actually the last few times it's been taking off the center section, which I'll show you, and then sanding that down and putting it back on and marking it and sanding it down. So it's not to try and make it seem easy, it's just to stop boring you with all the same old things. So if I just show you how we're getting on, if I just spin this bad boy around. So, there you go. I really have got to stop saying so. It's like my fill word. But anyway, look at that. Now, it really shouldn't have been that much effort for such a small piece, but it just takes a lot of time. So it got to the point where I trimmed this down as much as I could, because if I started trimming much more of it off here, the angle was going to be wrong. If I trimmed too much of it off here, then obviously it was going to sit too far down and it was going to be a weird angle as well. So what basically happened is once I'd lined this side up, you have to just stare at it a little bit, I suppose. There's no real way I can teach you how to do this. You just have to just think a bit logically about it. It ended up being that this just needed to be trimmed off at an angle, slowly but surely, just to try and make it meet up with this edge. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with that. I'll get it on there properly, obviously, when I come to weld it. These tiny little gaps going around it are not a problem. Like the welder will fill that easily. So I'm actually going to weld it on the car, I think. I'm going to come back in, hold it on, put a little spot this side, put another spot that side, maybe one a little bit further up if I can. Hang on, he's forgotten the damn exhaust hanger. You're right, I actually did forget about it a little bit. So rather than take the exhaust off now, weld it up and put it all back on and do that, I'm going to do the exhaust hanger now. So I'm going to quickly flip the camera around and I'll show you what the idea is with it. This actually is quite an important thing, because if I don't get this to sit quite high enough, it's going to hit the anti-roll bar at the front. It's not going to quite level up right at the back either. And also I've got to try and not have it hit the tank and not hit the bottom of the floor. And obviously the exhaust hangers have a little bit of flex in them. So yeah, you've got to take all this stuff into account. If it comes to it, I'll just put like a poly one on there. But I'll just quickly stick the camera into the car and I'll just show you what we're doing. So that's where the exhaust hanger goes. This is actually a stock one. I did actually buy a new one, but this one seems a lot more rigid, so hopefully it'll help. I've just jacked it up. It does hit this heat shield a little bit around the other side, but once I get this off, I'm actually just going to bend that back a little bit. So it just about clears the anti-roll bar enough that I've managed to move it around quite a bit. If it hits, I don't really know what I'm going to do about that, but it'll only ever do it if I kind of judder the car a little bit. And it looks pretty good back there as well. You'll see where I spot tacks or whatever. It was a bit difficult, so I literally couldn't see what I was doing, but it's close enough. I've actually got, because these are two flat ends, so you've got the flat there and a flat at the bottom, I've actually got a really thick piece of steel plate that I'm hoping I'm going to cut down. It's got a little bit of a curve on the end of it, which is quite handy, and I'm going to weld it. I'm hoping doing it directly on the side is going to be enough to keep this up, so when I drop the jack it doesn't just all sink. I did have a long bar before, but I was just too worried that because of the leverage on it, it was just going to flex this. But like I say, if this ends up not being strong enough and the exhaust moves around too much, I will just get a poly one of these. They're only about a tenner, I think, and it should stop it moving at all, or I'll have to work out getting another one put in there. I still haven't clamped this up yet, because I wanted a little bit more flex down that end just while I was getting it done, but I will get the exhaust clamp on there before we do anything else. Oh, one of my torches just ran out. Lovely. Anyway, I'll grab this little bit of straight bar, and we'll see how we get on. There you go. That's basically just an old piece of box section. I've just marked it up, and that's the lip I was talking about. So once I actually cut that across there, that'll hopefully stop it falling out of the actual bush. It is a little bit wide at the minute, so again I've just drawn a line to make so it's the same shape as the other hanger, but otherwise not a huge amount to it really. There you go. Look, one exhaust hanger, I hope. It is pretty strong, so I don't think it's going to flex or anything like that, but you said you can see the little lip on the ends. Actually worked out pretty well. Just stuck it on the belt sander to take all the sharp edges and stuff like that off. But fingers crossed that is going to do the job nicely. Just to point out as well, you can see how cold it gets in my garage sometimes. I need to get an infrared heater. That has to be on my next shopping list. But I've been spending far too much money recently, so extra layers will do for now. And that looks pretty good. I've just fed it in from the other side for now. Like you said, look, you can see where the little lip's on there. That should stop it from falling off. I think probably what I might do, hopefully this will work out for the best, is I might actually bend this down for now if I can. Then I'll weld it on there on the flat piece, so it's almost like a little bend down like that. So I'll just get a marker pen out, I'll just mark across there and then put it in a vise and whack the hell out of it. There you go, that's bent. So again, the trick here really is to try and get it to sit fairly straight like that, so it's pulling the weight down. Whereas if you've got it underneath the exhaust, at least it's in my head, it's going to be trying to tip it, it's going to be trying to twist it down. So I reckon I'm going to whack that on there. I'm going to do, just where that very corner of it is, I'm going to do a spot weld on each side, or a tack, and then when I get it off the car, I'll actually bash that down flat to the actual exhaust and then do a little weld all the way around it. But for now, I'm just going to clean up this little patch of the exhaust underneath, try and get a couple of good tacks on there that will be strong enough and won't just blow straight through the exhaust. But right, that's that done. I'm not going to spend much time out here tonight because I've got some other bits to get on with, but I really wanted to get this tacked on so that if it's no good, at least I know I can cut it off and do it again. I don't have a particularly maximum amount of confidence that when I take this off, this isn't just going to drop 3 inches and everything's going to hit the anti-roll bar and stuff. But let's give it a look and see how much it moves. Oh, okay, it moved quite a bit. Anyone's guess as to whether that's hitting anything. Do you know what? I mean, it's close, but that might be all right. I think it's not too bad the rest of the way. And also, a little bit of slack will be getting taken up because once I, actually, if I can try and get the light vaguely okay. Obviously, once I push this up a little bit more and put the clamp on, I'll get a little bit more, but I mean, I'm moving that quite a bit. At the moment, that's looking pretty good. Do you know what? As much as I don't like to sound either surprised at my own abilities or big-headed in any way that I think I've done an awesome job there, but I'm actually massively happy with that. That's actually come out way better than I was expecting. I genuinely thought I was going to have loads of problems. So I'm calling that good on the exhaust. I'm going to get it off, get it on the floor, get it properly welded up, and then refit it to the car and hope everything works all right. And then let's give this car a test start. I've run out of welding wire. 9 AM trip to Machine Mart this morning. Thank you very much. New welding wire. Right, let's try that again. Take 2, welding up the exhaust. So I did have a few problems with the welder to start with, so you can see, so it's a bit hard when I get too close. This started going alright, and that's where my spot weld was. But to start with, I had the wire speed up way too much, which is what all this spitting is. And further around there, it looks awful just because it wasn't up high enough, so it was just kicking all over the place. I did actually blow through it a couple of times on the actual curve. I guess where they bend it, maybe it's a little bit thinner. But it will get better from this point, because I said I've got my eye in now. So I'll probably grind that other side off, do it again and crack on with the rest of it. But you know, I'll be honest, it's probably worth getting a couple of bits of metal first and getting this tested out on a piece you don't really care about rather than cocking up your exhaust. But like I said, it looks worse than it is, so I'll give it a little bit of a grind, tidy this little bit up here and then crack on the next bit. Right, it's actually the following day. I finished up the welding last night. Wasn't massively enjoyable because my welder's still not playing ball and I'm still not really good enough. But it's good enough. It's strong. It seems to have gone through, penetrated properly and all that stuff. So I stuck some heat-resistant paint on there just because it's mild steel, trying to stop it rusting too much. I am going to show you it, but I'm not going to get too close because it's a little bit ratty looking in places. But otherwise, I'm relatively happy. For something that cost me hardly anything, that should do the job. So I'm going to grab a couple of tools, grab all the clamps and stuff and get it bolted up and see how we look. There you go, look, all the hard work with some slightly ropey welding, but it's done anyway. I mean, I've actually put a little bit of heat tape over that, heat paint over that bit as well, even though it's stainless. But either way, I'm ready to go. I'm going to grab the clamps, get it under the car, and pray to all the car gods that nothing shifted while I was welding it. Are you ready? Because this was turning out to be almost as long as the Game of Thrones series, but it's on, it fits, nothing shifted. I did forget to do a couple of things. I was going to bash the heat shield on the exhaust out a little bit because it does knock. But look, check this out. Oh, there you go, look. I made a little heat shield for that as well. Just a piece of an old aluminium pipe with some heat reflective tape on it, just so I didn't mount the bumper. Quite like how that looks, but otherwise, it is pretty much exactly as I intended. I'll be honest, this is the honest truth here. I'd have liked if that was just tipped up a little bit more. I don't really know how that shifted because it wasn't like that when I made it. It did come away a little bit here when I pulled the exhaust off originally, and it must have just tweaked it down a little bit. So I definitely didn't have that big a gap. But, you know, I'll take it. I'll take it. The clamp down there doesn't fit either. I think I bought a very slightly too small one, but I need to take it off anyway to do the anti-roll bar and stuff at a later date. I have actually got some of this stuff as well. It's like a motorbike tank heat reflective stuff. So I'm going to chuck a little bit of that under the tank anyway. But otherwise, absolutely buzzing with that. It's my first exhaust I've ever built front to back. It is not great. It is not perfect, but hopefully it sounds all right. And it does mean I can start firing the car up now and do a little bit of mapping and testing and get it ready for, well, to go off and get properly tuned and get its MOT done. And it won't sound like a fighter jet. And I've got to do a few pre-checks before we do it, and I won't let it run for very long, but I just want to see if it starts. Houston, we have a problem. So to get the car ready to start it up, I pulled the fuel pump relay, cranked over a load of times till it basically built some oil pressure, just to make sure, topped the oil up, checked a few other little bits, made sure it's all right. And then I thought, actually, do you know what? Since we completely changed all the fuel pump system a little while ago, so I changed the fuel pump south, went to external fuel pump, updated all the wiring and stuff. So I've had loads of problems with fuel pump on this car. I've gone back in, and anyone out there who's ran an upgraded fuel pump of any shape or form will know you can tell pretty quickly usually when you turn the key whether it's working or not. Check this out. You can see the little AM's doing its thing, ignition's on. Not a squeak from the fuel pump. The fuel pump is dead again. Now to put that into perspective, I've had a stock one on here, I've had a AEM fuel pump, I've had a Fiat Coupe fuel pump, and I put a stock one on there a little while ago and it killed that as well. Now that was all on the same wiring. So I always thought maybe, and a few friends thought this as well, maybe the wiring wasn't up to the job. It was putting too much of a draw on the actual pump itself. It's overheating and seizing them up. So I basically like trebled the size of the power wire to it, gave it a shorter earth, went to external fuel pump just in case it didn't like sitting in that tank of fuel, and it's killed another one. It's literally dead. Like not a bean is coming out of it. I mean, the fuel in it's really old, but I mean, surely it's only been in there 6 weeks. So I've got no idea what to do. So I reckon it's probably going to be another fuel pump, drain the tank. I might just get an old Cinquecento one, just bodge it onto the side and just literally turn it on with it directly off the power feed, drain all of the fuel out of it, go get some low octane stuff so it hasn't got too much ethanol in it, and just hope it works this time, man. I must have spent like £300 on fuel pumps in the last few years just trying to keep this thing going. But you know, I told you I would try it and not gloss over very much. But either way, let's focus on the good things. There is nothing else that needs actually building, fitting, or anything on this car now. We just got to suss out what issue is that fuel pump, and then we're basically good to go. Once I can get it idling, then I'll get on the phone to MTech Automotive and get it booked in for mapping as soon as possible. So bear with me. I'm going to go speak to a few people and see how they think is wrong with it. But I'm at a bit of a loss as the fuel pump side of things. But thanks a lot for joining me. I appreciate it's been a bit of a long few episodes just to do an exhaust build, but I really want to try and show you a little bit more of how I actually do this stuff and how I tackle it, and hope that you actually learn something. So until the next time, fingers crossed, I'll figure it out pretty quick and we'll get it done. I'm confident I will. I know my stuff, so we'll be all right. Thanks a lot for sticking with me for these 3 episodes. And until the next one, I'll see you soon.